Continuing with our comparison of Saxon and Latinate words, I stumbled across the website that had already performed the research and scholarship I had wanted to do. Oh, how I love the internet. Even in this enlightened era, it is difficult for Cavia Porcellus to get a library card. But the internet, give me a touchpad and I can roam the universe. No questions asked. What I'll do shortly is to display the deliberate action of mixing Saxon and Latinate words for dramatic effect. Context, gentle grammarian. Context. First, let me credit two people who are responsible for the following examples of keen wordsmanship. The first is David Labaree, who runs the site davidlabaree.com, which is subtitled David Labaree on Schooling, History, and Writing. The following samples are lifted from an article I guess David Labaree wrote, entitled Farnsworth on Balancing Saxon and Latinate Words in Your Writing. And these samples are in turn lifted from Ward Farnsworth in a book called Farnsworth's Classical English Style. Okay. Prior to this recent discovery, I had not heard of Ward Farnsworth. With a name like that, I pictured the dude in a pith helmet who's possibly a classmate of Rudyard Kipling who liked to ramble on about biffers and blockers and posies and sipping back the bitter tea. Turns out Farnsworth is a Yankee. Born in Evanston, Illinois in 1967, he mounted a successful legal career, culminating in his current position, which happens to be the Dean of the University of Texas School of Law. Farnsworth also writes about law, and as we can see, he writes books about word usage. First, we have Labaree, Okay. First, we have Labaree summarizing Farnsworth. So this is Labaree. I love the way he captures the dynamics of powerful writing, creating a tension that gets released in the mind of the reader. One way the writer uses the difference in character of two kinds of words is by deploying them at different places within the same sentence, starting Latinate and ending Saxon, or the other way around. Consider what happens when you use the first approach. And now we're reading from Farnsworth, so we'll do the Farnsworth voice, which is going to sound a lot like the Labaree voice, but this is Farnsworth. Starting with Latinate words creates a sense of height and abstraction. Ending with plain language brings the sentence on to land. The simplicity of the finish can also lend it a conclusive ring. And the longer words give the shorter ones a power, by force of contrast, that the shorter ones would not have had alone. Lincoln is well known for his love of simple language, but he was also at home with Latinate words and mixed the two types to strong effect. He especially liked to circle with larger words early in a sentence and then finish it simply. The pattern allowed him to offer intellectual or idealistic substance and then tie it to a stake in the dirt. Here's an example from a letter he wrote about the Emancipation Proclamation, he being Abe Lincoln. But the proclamation, as law, either is valid or is not valid. If it is not valid, it needs no retraction. If it is valid, it cannot be retracted any more than the dead can be brought to life. Take a moment to let that technique set in. Observe, embrace, savor, repeat. Here, our old standby, Winston Churchill, utilizes the same technique. They will never understand how it was that a victorious nation, with everything in hand, suffered themselves to be brought low, and to cast away all they had gained by measureless sacrifice and absolute victory, gone with the wind. Powerful. Here is Oliver Wendell Holmes. I have no idea what the dude sounded like. If there is any principle of the Constitution that more imperatively calls for attachment than any other, it is the principle of free thought. Not free thought for those who agree with us, but freedom for the thought that we hate. And Frederick Douglas. Inaction is followed by stagnation. Stagnation is followed by pestilence, and pestilence is followed by death. It should be noted that this method can be reversed. We can go from the close, specific, and concrete to a more general abstraction. Let's let the Prime Minister show us how it's done. Latin to Anglo, concluding with Latin. You ask, what is our policy? I can say it is to wage war by sea, land, and air, with all our might, with all the strength that God can give us, to wage war against the monstrous tyranny never surpassed in the dark and lamentable catalogue of human crime. That is our policy. We love that man so much, we named a cigarette after him. You can never go wrong closing with Winston Churchill. As always, the Guinea Grammarian is sponsored by the writer's writer, Frank Lee Rio. If you want to write, read. If you want to write compelling fiction, read the work of Frank Lee Rio. His links are listed below.